Can they three-peat? Can UCLA be the team to break the streak of back-to-back national champions going back to 2012? In this video, we're breaking it down, seeing if they can do it. Let's get into it. Last year, the UCLA Bruins won back-to-back national championships, 2023 and 2024. It's the first time since dating back to 1995 and 96 when they won back-to-back. And this year, the Bruins are going to try and three-peat for the first time ever, in my understanding. 21 national championships in program history. Can they get their third in a row this year? That's the question everyone is asking. I think a lot of people would say that they are the favorite coming into this year with how many guys they bring back from last year's national championship team. But let's walk through the timeline of the last couple years for the Bruins. I think a lot of the Bruins' success really started when the Andrew Rowan era began in 2023 when he joined the team as a freshman and was that tandem setter combination with Miles Partain. Eventually, Partain left to go the Olympic route and play beach, and Rowan stepped in as the primary guy for the Bruins and showed why he could be that guy and he could be one of the best setters in all of the NCAA. And once Speraw found his setter, he already had a core of other guys that were playing at an extremely high level and playing for a couple of years. Champlin had been there for a couple of years. Mchennry had been there for a couple years. Knight had been a key member of that team. All the pieces just kind of fell into place in 2023, and they beat a really good Hawaii team with Jakob Tele running the show for the Rainbow Warriors. I was at that game. I was at that national championship, and even when Hawaii was playing their best, UCLA just seemed like they were always in it, and there was always a chance for them to come back and take the set. They ended up winning 3-1, and as you all know, ended up winning again this past year over Long Beach State. Despite not having their strongest season last year in comparison to 23, when the games mattered, when the lights were on, this team played their best. We know what they're capable of when they're firing on all cylinders, serving at a high level, serving in the court, and just playing good volleyball, and we saw that throughout the end of last year. All right, so what's it going to take to break the streak? There's a streak in NCAA volleyball dating back to 2012 of teams repeating every year, going back to back, starting with, I believe, Loyola Chicago in 2012, where they repeated. And you had a couple other teams in the mix. The great Hawaii team that won back to back, the great TJ DeFalco-led Long Beach team that won back to back. Ohio State had a piece in there where they were really strong with Surzin on the outside. A couple other programs in those years that really had a good 2-year stretch, but no one has been able to jump that hump and take it 3 years in a row. Can this be the year that the Bruins do it? That is the question. And I think of anyone, they have a good shot to do it as any of those other teams because they bring back so many key guys. And the guys that they bring in fill a lot of the gaps that they lost to graduation and they lost to the transfer portal. Now, looking historically, the reason why a lot of these teams haven't been able to three-peat is because every third year, there seems to be a team that just comes together and has that one guy, that one difference maker that sets them apart, whether it's a TJ DeFalco, whether it's a Jakob Tele, whether it's a whoever. It seems like that third year, there's always a guy that comes into the picture and makes things difficult for that three-peat. I think we know who that is this year in Simeon Nikolov. I've talked about him a good bit on the channel. I don't want to make another full video about him. This one's about UCLA. But we know his impact. We know what kind of player he is. He is the best chance at stopping this Bruins team from going the distance and leading Long Beach to the finals in an epic clash. Long Beach has the best chance of breaking the streak for the Bruins, depending on when they see each other in the NCAA tournament. Another really key change for this Bruins team is the resignation of John Speraw from coaching at UCLA. He took a job as the USA men's national team director of operations, from my understanding, and I think that's a great role for him after coaching for the men's national team for 8 years and getting a taste for that side of the game from the national team perspective, and still being able to be involved in the game at a broad level, which I think he always wanted to do, but stepping away a little bit from the busy schedule of coaching a Division I team like UCLA, the best in the country. And now the Bruins have Johnny Hawks, one of their previous assistants from, I believe, 2014-15 to 2022 timeframe. He went to Loyola Chicago for a year that they had a lot of success, and now he is back. But coaching changes bring a lot of things. I think this is the one variable that could have the most difference on this team. Volleyball is a sport that if you have a really good leader at the helm, it makes all your guys take all the stress off and just play ball. I'm not saying that Hawks is going to be a guy that turns this team down a bad path, but you just never know when it gets into crunch time, when it gets into those big games, how he's going to be able to lead in comparison to Speraw, a guy that's been in those moments. It's been at the highest moments, the Olympic level games. So that's going to be something we continue to keep an eye on as this year goes on. One thing about Speraw that we noticed from the past 2 national championships is he was not afraid to pull the trigger in big moments and taking out guys and making big substitutions from some of your biggest and best players. We saw that in 23 when J.R. Norris stepped in and had just a flat-out unbelievable game in the middle, almost single-handedly taking over that game from that position and from the service line. A guy who didn't play a whole lot that season, but Speraw knew if he called on his name, he would be ready, and he did that. And last year, Rama stepping up for Cooper Robinson, who was having a great year and a great game, to be honest, but he just felt like Rama was the guy to go to close out that game, and he stepped up as well. So we'll see how Hawks navigates the season, navigates substitutions. He has a pretty deep team, a lot of guys that can play, but you reach that point in the season when maybe someone's not performing to their level, and we'll see how he navigates managing that depth chart as we go. As I said, a couple key departures for this team, one of them being Speraw, like we touched on, but 3 others I should say, being Ethan Champlin, first team All-American, all-tournament team last year in the NCAA tournament, and the tournament MVP as well. A lot of accolades for your OH1. And then you have Mchennry, a 557 hitting percentage middle. You don't get those out of nowhere. You don't get those guys out of thin air. He did so much for the team. 6'7", but blocked like he was 7'5". He's a big shoes to fill in both of those positions. And then obviously Alex Knight, a player who was instrumental in their 2023 run to a final to beat Hawaii. So 3 big departures, 3 big losses. Also, you got to consider Genis, the guy out of the middle that they lose to USC, and a player that played a significant amount of time for the Bruins over the past several years. And that's 4 guys that have played a lot of time for this team. So when you break that up and shift that up, it will likely take time for this team to develop the same chemistry as they had with some of those guys in the past. Luckily, UCLA has more depth on a roster than probably anyone ever in the NCAA in Division I. They have Zach Rama, who's going to take the spot of Ethan Champlin at the OH2. They have Cameron Thorne, a first-team All-American from Grand Canyon, who's going to step in for Merrick Mchennry. Maybe not at that peak level, but he also hit 525 last year and was a stud. So look to see him to be a great combination with Andrew Rowan this season. And they bring in 2 freshmen that are top 5 in the country, and Sean Kelly and Trent Taliaferro, the opposite and outside combo. I don't think this is their year to get a lot of tick, but I think they're guys going forward that kind of step into that Rama Robinson role, that maybe this year is about development, seeing the system, learning a game at this level, and then they start after some of those guys graduate in a year or 2. I wouldn't say it's a complete fill of the shoes with these guys, but I think it's pretty close. And this UCLA team seems to rebuild every single year. That's courtesy of Speraw's really great recruiting efforts and maybe some of his influence with the national team, who's to say. But they definitely reloaded and are back and ready to fight for another title. I can't talk about Division I without bringing up this guy, Simeon Nikolov. I think he's the X factor in Division I this season. I think he's the guy that stands as the wall, the barrier, the barricade to the Bruins repeating three-peating and finding another national championship for their program. He is a once-in-a-generation type player at 6'9", with his wingspan, his athleticism, his decision-making, and I think he's the guy that puts Long Beach on his shoulders and gets them as close as possible to threatening and challenging this Bruins team. There are other teams in the landscape that I think are going to give him a good run, but I think the best one out there right now is going to be Long Beach, and we'll see what happens, but I think he's the guy to look at and how he progresses through the season to determine if they're going to be a true test against them come postseason. Now, these teams do match up against each other twice in February, I believe on the 7th and on the 12th. So stay tuned for those matchups, and we'll see who comes out on top, and maybe it's indicative of what will happen in the finals, maybe not. But regardless, those are going to be some elite level matchups to watch. Looking at the strengths and weaknesses of UCLA on can they repeat, the strengths are obviously a couple things. Their roster depth. They're extremely deep at all positions. You talk about 2 top 5 freshmen coming in the building, one of the best transfers in the country, bringing back a lot of depth at all positions. They have a deep roster that is flexible and movable, and if a guy's not playing well, they plug and play with the next guy who is equally as talented. And not a lot of Division I programs can say the same thing at an elite level, at a big time level. Usually goes 1 or 2 deep at each position, but UCLA has 2, 3, 4 guys at each position that can all play at a high caliber level. And quite frankly, this team just has the experience in the moments. Rowan has been there, Cooper Robinson's been there, David's been there. These guys have been in this moment and played better than anyone, so that stuff matters when it all counts, and I think that's their little leg up against the competition. On the flip side, some of their weaknesses, if you even want to call them weaknesses, I think it just may be barriers or obstacles, but new coach means new expectations, means new strategies and philosophies. I think that's a variable that we haven't fully unpacked yet, but we will see how that transpires. New competitors, Nikolov in the building, a lot of other good teams getting a lot of good additions. So every year brings a lot of mayhem, a lot of chaos. And I think the competition continues to get better and better every single year. And obviously, the pressure to three-peat. No one's done it. Can you do it? The pressure to live up to that moment and win again and again and again is something that we'll see if this UCLA team can do when it counts. Right now, I think the odds are undoubtedly in UCLA's favor to repeat, given the talent they have, given the experience, given all the things. I think they are the heavy favorite to win the season. And if I'm putting my money on anyone, it's probably going to be on a three-peat for UCLA. I think they have the guys, they have the capability, and it's them against them if they want to make it happen. And like I said before, I think it's a collision course with Long Beach and UCLA to the final. I hope they meet in the final, but if they meet before, I think that's the one team that can give them a real shot, potentially take them down with the skill of Nikolov and plenty of other guys on that team, Siapanis, Varga, McRaven, some of those other players on Long Beach that match in caliber and skill level to this UCLA team. But I want to hear from you. I want to know what you think the odds are that UCLA three-peats. Drop a percentage in the comments and give me an idea of why you think they three-peat or why you think they don't. And if not, then who is going to be the NCAA champions for 2025? Columbus, Ohio, in May. Be there or be square. And we'll see you guys in the next one to comment on all things Division I volleyball. Peace.